He's a tough street-fighting lawyer with the highest ratings for honesty and integrity. He's here to answer your legal questions and get you the help you need. You're listening to The Legal Lowdown with your lawyer, Joe Ingram of Joe Ingram Law. Joe Ingram has more than 20 years' experience fighting for his clients here in the state of Alabama. Joe's focus is criminal defense and family law. You don't have to face your legal issue alone. You've got Joe Ingram on your side. In case of sensitive legal matters, you can always reach out directly to Joe at joeingramlaw.com and arrange for a private consultation. And now, Alabama's defender of the defenseless, protector of the people, and all-around good guy, Joe Ingram.
All right. You're back for the Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram, your Alabama lawyer on WERC 105.5 in Birmingham, WBHP up in Huntsville, and WRTR in Tuscaloosa. Roll, Tide, roll. Summer's over. I told you. Goes by fast. Football season will be starting in just a couple of weeks. As always, you can check us out on podcast, Apple, Spotify, and even my YouTube channel, joeingramlaw.com. Check out my YouTube channel. Remember, if you have a case, better call Joe. If you have a case, better call Joe. Today, we have a great guest in the studio. We have Charles Dunn of Boyd, Furr & Buchan Dunn. He is a divorce lawyer, and we're going to have a great conversation the first hour about depositions in a divorce case. We both have probably enough war stories that we could write a book about it. The top 25 things not to do in a divorce deposition. Anyway, so he's going to be with us in just a second. Next week, our guest is Ashley Dunham. She is running for the Alabama Supreme Court as a justice, as a Democrat, and you will want to listen to that interview as well next week for Ashley Dunham. We have some other big interviews that I'm going to announce in the next couple of weeks. They're going to knock your socks off. We have been working really hard on some of these, and I'm going to tease them up 1 week at a time. Let's just say we're good all the way through December. Okay, so as always, we want to thank our sponsor, Shelby Fence Company. Shelby Fence Company in the greater Birmingham area for over 30 years, whether it's either commercial, residential, fence, wood, whatever you need, Shelby Fence Company is the name to know for installation or repair. You can look them up at shelbyfencecompany.com, or you can call them at 205-664-1551, 205-664-1551, shelbyfencecompany.com. Okay, Charles.
Afternoon.
How are you?
I'm doing fine. Thanks for having me.
Well, it's great to have you, Charles. So, Charles, tell Conservative Talk Radio a little bit about Charles Dunn.
Well, I'm a North Carolina boy, went to college there, and then came here for law school and started clerking for a law firm that was then called Boyd, Furr & Buchan and Nichols. Like bad mold, I just kind of stuck around and have been doing divorce work at that firm, which is now Boyd, Furr & Buchan Dunn. So I guess going on 29 years almost now, and just doing divorce day in, day out.
Oh, my goodness.
It takes a special, weird type of person to do this type of practice day in, day out.
It does.
Yes.
I forgot that Randy Nichols was there.
Yeah, he was. He was there for about a year or so when I joined the firm.
I forgot about that. Yeah. Okay, Charles. So we talked about this a few weeks ago at the courthouse about you being a guest, and then we decided to talk about a topic. And you called me the other day, and I love what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about depositions in a divorce case. So start off, Charles. Where do you want to start this?
Well, when you asked about a topic, I started thinking about it and thought, well, why not talk about the one thing that I really do enjoy probably the most in my practice of law as far as divorce practice, and that's depositions. For some reason, I love to do depositions. I love to prepare for them. I love to take them. I think they're a very useful tool. And I think that certainly in my practice, I have found that unfortunately clients, adverse parties that I depose, all too often I don't think they're prepared enough. And I take great pride in trying to prepare my clients for a deposition, knowing what the purpose of a deposition is, what to expect, what my role as the evil divorce lawyer is versus their role as the deponent, the client, and try to take some hidden unknowns out of the sort of the mystery for the client, so they know what to expect. But I really do enjoy taking depositions, and wish I could do more of it. It's a fairly expensive discovery tool that we'll soon talk about. But it's something that I think that is very important to do in certain circumstances. Certainly, if you're going to have your case that you expect it to go to trial, I think a deposition is paramount, if not a must. And sometimes I take a deposition really just to exert some leverage, to show the other side that I've got some leverage, maybe to compel them to talk settlement, maybe to get them to capitulate, maybe to bring them to the negotiation table. So that's another reason for a deposition.
Yeah. So, Charles, let's start back for just a second. In my practice, I send out a letter to my client that I have developed over my career explaining what a deposition is, all the rules, and then I bring them in and I try to prep them as best I can for a deposition. Sometimes it goes well, and sometimes they still don't learn because they don't do this every day like you and I do.
Right.
Is that your philosophy, how you do it too? When you get ready to prepare your client for the depositions?
I don't do anything written to the client. Since I was a law clerk at this firm that I'm now really the sole partner of at this point, we have a deposition video. It is from 1970. If you're my age, you might remember the Electric Company. It's kind of that quality. But it's a very good basic video, and I get my clients to come in, and the first thing they do is they watch the video. It's a 20-minute video or so, and it's not really necessarily totally focused on divorce work, but depositions in general, right. Sort of what a deposition is, common pitfalls, mistakes people make, expectations that you can, sort of understand as far as what to expect. And so they watch the video, and then after that, I go in, meet with the client, and we talk in very general terms about what they just watched. I talk about what a deposition is in greater detail. The first thing I do before we get into the latter part of that meeting, where we talk about the specific nature of their particular deposition, what to expect, as I talk sort of in general terms, what a deposition is. First thing a deposition is, it's a discovery tool, sort of in our arsenal as divorce lawyers or as any other lawyers, where this is oftentimes the second opportunity we now have to get the adverse party under oath. Typically, prior to a deposition, we've already done maybe interrogatories, which are written questions that the adverse party has already answered under oath. And so now we can go into much greater detail in a deposition, which is a sort of an answer question format, where I have an opportunity to ask the adverse party any question, as long as the answer may lead to relevant information. It's quite broad, and it's intended to be quite broad. It's a discovery tool. So one of the main purposes that I explain to the client is know what we're doing here. What is the purpose of a deposition? And as an attorney, there's multiple purposes for a deposition. Number one, like I say, it's to help you get prepared for trial. I want to know all the good, the bad, the ugly, why they wear the white hat, why my client wears the black hat. I want to know what they're going to say when they get on the stand at trial. If I do my job right at a deposition, there should be no surprises. No
surprises in the courtroom.
I should know when I ask the adverse party a question, I should already know the answer before it's even uttered.
Or reasonably know the answer, Charles.
Absolutely. That's the goal, at least. And so I want to discover what the other side's position is. Again, the good, the bad, the ugly. The second reason I take a deposition is, or purpose is, as I'm taking a deposition, I'm now committing the adverse party to a certain fact pattern, a story, so to speak. Whereas if they now deviate from that fact pattern or story at trial, I can use the deposition to impeach them, and I can use the deposition as a tool where to show the judge that in a prior occasion where they've been placed under oath, their answer wasn't quite the same. So are they lying then or are they lying now? Sort of to question their credibility. Another purpose for a deposition that I do is as I'm taking a deposition, I'm not only asking questions, but I'm also observing. I'm judging this person that I'm deposing, this adverse party, against my own client. How are they going to stand up at trial? Are they going to be someone that is a good witness?
Are they going to be combative?
Are they going to be combative? Are they going to be someone who is looks like they're evasive? Can have some credibility determinations. So as I'm deposing someone, I'm also observing and seeing how they stack up against my client, because as a part of the evaluation of my case, whether to take a case to trial is knowing the strength of my client's testimony as a witness. How are they going to pair up against the other side? If the other side is going to be a good witness, that goes into my evaluation. Do we need to go to trial? Do we need to talk settlement? If the other side is going to be a horrible witness, then that certainly goes into my sort of evaluation of whether or not we need to proceed to trial. And so I want to discover information. I want to judge this person as far as what type of witness they're going to be. And so that all sort of is the reasons why, and committing them to a certain fact pattern while we take a deposition. So the first thing I do is go over why are we doing this? What is the purpose? And then after we go through that in sort of general terms, I think it's very good to have the client understand what their role is as the one that's going to be deposed, as opposed to my role as far as like I say, the evil divorce lawyer, the one's going to be asking them questions. And I think that's key. All too often, Joe, as you probably know, our clients, this is the first opportunity typically a client has where they now get to sit face-to-face with the other attorney, the opposition. And so it's human nature for this person to want to be able to tell this person, this attorney that represents their spouse, why they're wrong, they're right. Why their position is the correct position, their spouse's position is the wrong position. They want a story. They have a story to tell. They want to explain. That's human nature. If the client goes into a deposition thinking that's their role, they're going to do a horrible job. All right, that is not the role at a deposition. The role at a deposition is not to explain their story, is not to tell the reasons why they should win and the other side should lose. Their role is very, they've got a very succinct and very specific role, and that is to sit there, listen to the question as it is asked, comprehend what's being asked, answer the question, shut their mouth, and wait for the next question. And number one, tell the truth, all right? But that's it. This is not something that you have to, as a deponent, particularly in a divorce case. You've lived this. You don't have to stay up the night before cramming information like you did in college or whatever, or for a test. There are very few dates that are vitally important, So they need to understand what their role is, and that is to listen to the question as it is being asked, comprehend what's being asked, and then answer it and shut their mouth and wait for the next question.
Yep.
We all too often, Joe, in our practice, we don't issue subpoenas for the opposing party where we're have a court order instructing them to appear at your office to sit for a deposition. How this usually goes about when we set up depositions is I'll call Joe and I'll say, hey, Joe, I want to take your client's deposition. We look at our calendar. We set up a date. I'll do a notice of deposition to Joe, letting him know that I intend to take his deposition, and if I want him or her, whatever his spouse is, to bring documents or certain things to the deposition so I can examine and question them, I can do that. But I typically don't ever issue a subpoena. So I always tell my clients that, look, we're there as a courtesy to the other side. I've willingly put you up for a deposition. So we're going to be very polite. We're going to sit there and we're going to listen to the question as it is asked, and we're going to answer it, and then we're going to shut our mouth. And if they don't ask, we don't tell. If the other side doesn't want a hypothetical, we don't give them a hypothetical. If they don't want reasons or a basis, we don't give them reasons or a basis. We simply answer the question, and that's it. And so I explained to them their role. And I also explained to them, while it's a very easy role in concept, it's obviously going to be very difficult. And the reason it's very difficult is because, it's a stressful situation. I talk about the stress, all right? And all too often, Joe, I think stress gets a bad moniker in the press, all right? People talk about stress leading to health problems and to heart attacks and what have you. I always tell my clients stress is a good thing. Stress is what keeps you mentally focused, attuned. It's that driving force that turns coal into diamonds, all right? So I want them stressed. What I don't want them in a deposition is to mismanage their stress, and now it's become distress. All right.
Or become emotional about it.
Become emotional about it.
Yeah.
They've got a job to do.
Right.
All right. And a lot of times that's very difficult in the divorce context because of the, obviously, this is their marriage. These are their children. These are their assets. So it is some very emotional content that we're dealing with. But I try to get them to look at it as you have got a job to do. And your job is to listen to the question, answer it, shut your mouth, wait for the next question. And that's it. All right. But I understand it's very difficult in this stressful situation because all too often, as we learned in college, human beings react to stressful situations one of two ways, the old fight versus flight mechanism.
Yeah.
Not that I expect my clients in a deposition, in response to one of your questions to stand up, kick back their chair and run down the hall, out the building, fleeing, all right, in a stressful situation. But all too often, if you're under stress, and you aren't able to manage your stress, you aren't able to comprehend what's being asked of you. And all too often the client may realize, wow, as long as I keep answering yes to Joe's questions, he's going through his notebook pretty quick, his list of questions. We're going to be out of here by noon, all right? And you've now answered, client, yes to the last 6 questions in front of you, and the question that's now been posed to you is obviously a no. We know it's a no, but you can't answer no because he's led you down that bunny trail because you haven't been paying attention. You haven't been comprehending and listening to the question. You've allowed yourself to flee in your mind. So don't, client, allow yourself to flee, all right? Stay mentally attuned and focused. The other mechanism, that human beings have, the fight mechanism. Joe, you're not necessarily of this character. I've never found you to be. You're always a gentleman, all right? But there are some attorneys
oh, God, here we go.
That in depositions want to demonstrate that this is my sandbox.
Yeah.
I'm in charge. And
you're in my house.
Absolutely. And that's okay. I tell my clients, if they want to be rude, if they want to be obnoxious, if they want to be sarcastic, that's their right to do. If they cross the line, I'll step in and say something. I'll object, or I'll call a break, and we'll go out and talk to the other attorney. But my line is a lot further than client your line is. Yeah. Know that, all right? So don't allow yourself in this stressful situation to get the old fight mechanism where you're now pushing back. You're being sarcastic back, rude back. Because if you're doing that, you're now reacting. You're not staying proactive. You're not mentally attuned. You're not focused. You're now allowing this person to goad you. All right. And you're having diarrhea of the mouth, typically, and everything you're saying is being transcribed by the court reporter. And you're allowing this person to give you, you're giving this person a lot of rope to hang yourself with. Plus, you're exposing sort of certain areas that the other attorney knows now they can try to exploit at trial. What areas makes you mad? What gets you riled up? That kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you've got to avoid the fight or the flight mechanism in this very stressful situation. So we talk about the stress, and so to avoid to not manage their stress, allowing it to become distress, and now they aren't accomplishing their purpose and their role. My role in a deposition is quite different. It's trying to discover information and do that kind of thing. So we talk about the roles, my role, and the purpose of a deposition, their role in a deposition. And then after we do that, we start talking about the specifics, all right, as far as what to expect in their specific case. By the time you get to deposition show, you sort of know what the issues are. Mm-hmm. And so we can tell our client that, certainly I don't know what Joe is going to ask every question. I don't have his playbook here, but we know by now, here are the issues. Here are the areas. whether it be a custody case. If it's a custody case, he's going to ask you about, why should you be awarded custody as opposed to your spouse? Give me each and every reason why. So be thinking about those reasons. Why should your spouse not be awarded custody? Be thinking about some reasons. What has been your role as the custodial parent versus your spouse's role as the custodial parent? We can go into certain areas and try to obviously prepare the client as to these are things that you are going to be asked. You should be asked. Now, we don't know actually the specific questions or the how involved it's going to be, but we should be able to, at this point in a deposition prep meeting, be able to explain to the client and get them prepared on what we know are going to be the issues that should be asked about in a deposition.
Yeah. We're having a great conversation with Charles Dunn today talking about depositions. Charles, let me ask you, go back just a second. I find a lot of times that when I take a deposition, and you know where I'm going with this, it's almost like it's an opportunity. We have those clients that want their day in court or their opportunity to be heard. So this is like their opportunity to be heard and tell what their feelings are sometimes. And it's almost lethargic in a way. And a lot of times after you take depositions, it's easier to go to mediation or it's easier to resolve the case because now they've looked at their spouse in the eye when we're sitting at the table, right? Mm-hmm. 1, 2, 3, 4, and we've done it. And it's like they've had a chance to have a cleansing. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Absolutely. And that's, I think you're absolutely, this is a highly personal cause of action, legal
right.
cause of action.
Right.
It's different than any other type of a legal action. It's so personal in nature, so emotional in nature. And like you say, a lot of times clients need to get their perspective off their chest.
Yep.
So, while a deposition obviously may provide that opportunity, because I always tell my clients, this is your opportunity perhaps, but only if asked. So if you aren't asked, maybe you leave a deposition and you haven't gotten the satisfaction because you weren't asked the questions if you did your job properly, client. But a deposition it's a way to measure sort of the strength of your case up against the other side. And not only as the attorneys, but I think the clients, they might at this point have talked to friends, family, neighbors, and gotten really confident about their position. You may not share that same confidence because you've been around the block. You know what the particular judge is like. You know what to expect. And so maybe in a deposition, they sort of come to this realization that, okay, maybe the strength of my case isn't quite what I thought it was, Yeah. Or, boy, that other attorney has, asked me some really good questions, mm-hmm. and I didn't have really good answers to it or what have you, So after this, like you say, it can be a process where now the clients, after they've been deposed, maybe now the case is now ripe or riper for mediation or a settlement negotiations or anything like that. So it does have that purpose as well.
Charles, most people don't understand that, really don't know what we do. By the time we sit down to take a deposition and we've really done our jobs, and I know you really do your job and I try to do my job, we've done all the legwork, meaning we've got tax returns, we've got bank statements, we've got text messages, we maybe have school records, we've got counseling records, we've got all the records in the world in front of us to prepare, just like we're going to take a trial. I mean, it's almost like a mini trial without a judge in the room, right?
Right.
In some ways. And so what people don't realize is that if you love to cross-examine somebody, this is the greatest opportunity. We're going to go to news and weather. We'll be back with Charles Dunn. You don't miss it. We'll be back for the second segment of Legal Dunn. We'll be back in just a second.
You're listening to The Legal Lowdown with your lawyer, Joe Ingram. If you need confidential legal help off air, reach out to Joe at joeingramlaw.com. Stay tuned for more. Joe will be right back after this break for news and weather. You're listening to The Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram. Joe is a 20-year veteran of the Alabama courts specializing in criminal defense and family law. If you need a private legal consultation, email Joe at joeingramlaw.com. And now, welcome back to The Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram.
All right. We're back for the second segment of Legal Lowdown on WERC 105.5 in Birmingham, WBHP up in Huntsville, and WRTR in Tuscaloosa. We're back with Charles Dunn of Boyd, Furnabuke, and Dunn. He is a divorce lawyer. He's probably the best male divorce lawyer in Birmingham, hands down.
Much too kind, Joe.
No, you are. You know that. And we're talking about depositions today. And right before we went to the break, Charles, I mentioned it's almost like a mini trial in that if the lawyer has done everything they're really supposed to do, you've already got your case ready for trial, 90%. You've got all your records, tax returns, bank statements, school records, counseling records, text messages. You got it all ready, and you're ready to ask every question under the sun so that you reasonably think you know what the answer is going to be in a courtroom.
Mm-hmm.
And doing that examination is such an adrenaline rush for me. I love it. Talk about that.
Yeah, it does give you an opportunity. I think that's probably why I do love depositions. It's a sort of an environment where you can ask all these questions, open-ended questions, get the answers, listen to the questions, then we'll provide you more questions to those answers. It really does give you an opportunity to explore the case and the other side's position, with a sort of surgical skill.
Yep.
And we were talking sort of before or during the break, how do you take a deposition if you represent the plaintiff? Is there a difference if you represent the plaintiff versus if you represent the defendant? I've always found the way that I sort of conduct depositions, if I represent the plaintiff, I feel a little greater freedom. I can be much more aggressive in the deposition against the other side. And the reason is because I know that if the case doesn't settle, then when I go to trial, I represent the plaintiff. I get to present my case first. I get to control the evidence, the presentation of the witnesses, what comes in, the testimony, the order of things. And so by the time I'm done with my case and the defendant has their opportunity to stand up, the picture's already been painted for the trial judge, So now as the defendant, you have this sort of difficult, somewhat difficult opportunity to now try to manipulate the colors of the palette once it's already been painted,
Yep.
And our trial judges are impartial. They start off impartial, but just by the moniker judge, at some point they start judging,
Yeah.
And so if I represent the plaintiff, I feel like I'm being much more aggressive. I can show much more cards. I can show the other side sort of what I have, some exhibits, and trying to get them to capitulate maybe before the trial. And if I represent the defendant, I might be a little bit more coy in a deposition. I might, like you said, there might be certain questions I want to reserve for trial, and maybe try to set the opponent up maybe a little bit more to help me with my presentation at trial. So I tend to be a little bit more reserved if I represent the defendant.
Charles, I had a deposition recently for a case that just went to trial. And I took the deposition, and the opposing counsel chose not to take my client's deposition. Now, whether that was a monetary decision or just presuming they knew what my client was going to testify to, I don't know which. But if you know you're going to try the case, and, 90% of the time I know if I'm going to take a deposition, then this is a case where the parties are far apart unless something really happens at the deposition, we're going to try the case. I mean, that's why you do it. It's why you spend the money, because it's not cheap. You got to pay the court reporter, transcript, all that. We sit there 4 or 8 hours. Have you ever had that happen where you take the deposition and the other side doesn't, and then they go in the courtroom? They don't have a clue what your client's going to testify to. They're at a disadvantage in the courtroom.
Absolutely. And I would think it hopefully was a monetary issue, because otherwise I'd certainly a lapse perhaps in judgment, overconfidence on the other attorney's part maybe. Certainly they have forgone an opportunity to discover information and must feel very confident about their position. So, but I've had those situations where I've taken a deposition of the adverse party and my client's deposition hasn't been taken, and it leaves you wondering sort of, wow, do they have that much in their folder over there against my client? They don't need a deposition, or are they just really confident, or is it a monetary issue?
Yeah.
And typically, you probably have a good sense if it's a monetary issue at that point, because you've discovered information, you've got bank accounts, someone's income, their employment situation, that kind of thing. But yeah, I would be very reluctant, particularly in a custody case or a high asset case, to go into a trial without having conducted depositions.
Yeah. Well, they regretted it last week. But anyway, it was fun for me.
Yeah.
And Charles, have you ever had this position? So I took the wife's deposition. They didn't take the husband. I'm the plaintiff. I can control the game. And so I felt confident in that. Why not go ahead and call the defendant on direct? Because then I still control the narrative. They're asking the questions on cross to try to rehabilitate their client in a custody case. Mm-hmm. And so by now, I've had my investigator testify about infidelity. I've had the husband testify about infidelity. We had a child testify in camera, which means outside the presence of the parents for those listening at home. And so I have just built my case block by block by block. And then the opposing counsel looks shocked. Young lawyer, I think they're learning. They just presumed that I wouldn't call their client on direct.
Right.
And I'm like, well, why not? I know what the testimony should be. So have you ever taken that step and just go ahead and say, I've got it, so why not lay it out there the way I want the judge to hear it? And then they're stuck trying to clean up the mess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Makes sense what I'm saying?
Oh, yeah. You had the perfect, storm. It sounds like a great case. And, it's always a cost-benefit analysis, when you represent the plaintiff. Do I present my client's case, and as a part of my client's case, do I call the adverse party as a witness? Knowing that if I do, I control the narrative, like you say. I must feel fairly confident, I should, as to being able to get this adverse party to make certain concessions that don't look good or not going to sound good. But I also know that by calling this person as a witness, this adverse party, I've now allowed, or I'm going to allow, their own attorney to be able to cross-examine them. So it's always a cost-benefit analysis as far as, am I going to be able to score more points by calling the defendant to the stand, or do I need to sort of play a little bit more defense and allow the other side to call them? Because obviously if the other side calls their own client, they can't cross-examine their own client. They've got to ask direct questions, open-ended questions, who, what, when, where, that kind of thing. It's a little bit harder to do.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you have a strong case, though, absolutely, I'm with you. You call them, and by the time the plaintiff gets to stand up and present their case, the die has already been cast. The judge is just sitting there just kind of smiling, going, really? You have a case? So, yeah, that must have been pretty fun.
So, Charles, I only got about 16 minutes with you, so I want to get some questions in really fast.
Sure.
We all see most of the same people in all the same cases. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Do you talk to your clients and you say, I know this person, I know this lawyer, I know their style, this is what you can expect in a deposition? Do you have those that are more like oil and water? You know what I'm talking about here. And we're not talking about anybody.
Right.
No names. But you know what I'm speaking to.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there was a certain attorney that I dealt with quite often. And I noticed fairly quickly after having done several depositions with this attorney that, number one, they have, attorneys prepare different ways. This particular attorney had a 3-ring binder that was used. And every question, at least it looked like from the other side of the table, was written down. Documents were done. Exhibits were pre-marked. They had everything mapped out. But I noticed that they always asked certain questions. And so what I did is I went ahead and I got several depositions that I had with that attorney. And sure enough, went through all the depositions and pulled out all the common questions that this particular attorney always asked. And so whenever I had a case against this attorney, I would always, in my deposition prep with my client, say, these are the questions that you will be asked. No ifs, ands, or buts. They do it every time. So, in that respect, yeah, you can. And Joe, like you say, there are certain attorneys that, believe it or not, folks, attorneys have personalities and
chemistry
and egos.
Yeah.
There are certain attorneys who have bigger personalities and bigger egos than others. And so that's, if I know who I'm dealing with, I certainly, as part of my preparation for my client in a deposition, I will tell my client, here's what you can expect.
Yeah.
If I'm dealing with Joe Ingram, hey, you can expect this is going to be, he's going to be very polite. As long as you answer, and you're polite, he's going to be polite back to you. He's a gentleman. There are some attorneys that I deal with that, you say, okay, this person has a tendency to be very sarcastic, can be condescending. You're going to feel attacked. You're going to feel like your judgment's attacked, unduly criticized. And so prepare for that, Yeah. So yes, it's one of the things you need to do is know your opponent.
Yeah. It takes time to learn that in our business.
It does.
And for me, it seems like they keep getting younger when I look around the courtroom sometimes, Charles.
Oh.
Let me ask you something. The craziest deposition I ever had one time was two spouses of the same sex marriage. And the other party got upset during the deposition, ran out of my conference room, Charles, honest to goodness, got in her car, wrecked her car into my client's car in the parking lot, sort of like Thelma and Louise in the grocery store parking lot scene, at a deposition. We had to call 911. We had to call the police. Have you ever had some really just off-the-wall stories from depositions that stick out in your mind? Surely you have.
Yeah, two. And one of them I kind of hesitate to even say. I'll try to clean it up maybe. I was asking my court reporter that I use all the time was there, obviously, and I represented the wife in this divorce case, and I was asking the husband about problems in their marriage. And, you ask, there's certain areas that are somewhat typical, one of which may be in the bedroom. And so I was asking about, questions about, problems in their marriage in that particular area. And I'm not, there are some attorneys, but I'm not one. I typically try to keep it very general in nature. I don't need to get into the gross details.
You try to keep it clean.
Try to keep it somewhat clean.
I got you.
But one of his complaints was the problems in the marriage that he from his perspective was he had a very difficult time ever satisfying my client. Okay.
It's all right.
And so in response to that, I kind of sat there and looked at him, and then I held up my fingers and held up my thumb and index finger about 2 inches apart, and I said, does it make you feel that big? Meaning, does that hurt you as far as a man or that kind of thing? But when I held up my thumb and index finger and I asked him in response to that, does that make you feel that big? The court reporter she started laughing uncontrollably, and we had to take a break. And I had to apologize to the husband. That's not how I meant it. I promise you, So that was one. And then another story was the deponent, the husband was very noticeably nervous. And I suspect he was probably had taken a little bit too much of something,
Yeah.
And just very soon after I started the deposition, he ended up going over and throwing up in the trash can, which made my client feel good. But, that kind of thing. You're like, wow, that guy's really not able to control his stress, really into distress right here. But you have all sorts of stories,
Charles, how do you handle those situations where two things, the opponent, meaning the person I'm taking their deposition, will constantly look at their lawyer like, should I answer this question? And generally speaking, most of the lawyers will say, don't look at me. This is your deposition. It's not mine. That's the obvious answer.
Right.
And then the second one is the client that says, I refuse to answer the question. Mm-hmm. How do you handle that situation? I'm sure that's come up for you a lot. How do you handle that?
Yeah. So, you have those situations where you'll ask a question in a deposition and the deponent will look at their attorney, and there may be conversations, whispering or whatever in the ear or stuff like that, and then they'll answer. And if that happens more than once or twice, typically just for the record, so the record demonstrates that's occurring because the record's not going to show that unless the court reporter can actually hear what's being said. If they're whispering, if the deponent keeps on leaning over and whispering, if it's not heard audible, then it's not going to show up on the record. So a lot of times I'll say on the record, let the record reflect that after each question, the deponent keeps leaning over and whispering to his attorney. Or I might even get a little bit more aggressive and say, sir, my intention here is to take your deposition, not your lawyer's, that kind of thing. If someone just refuses to answer a question, have they given a legitimate basis? Is there some sort of privilege that they've asserted? If not, sometimes you just get deponents who are just being obstinate and just refuse to because I don't want to answer your question.
Yeah.
Then you can certainly, if it's something critical, and you want the answer, then you can always take a break and get the judge on the phone and get the judge to see if you can argue whatever the question is, and the judge typically will instruct the deponent either answer the question or make some sort of decision right there. So in those rare situations, it is possible, if the judge is available, to take a break, get the judge on the line, and get the judge to make a decision on whatever the item in controversy may be.
Yeah. I've only had to do that one time, call the judge in a deposition case, but it was a business case. Mm-hmm. And the circuit court judge was not happy that we had to get him on the phone. No. But he ruled for me. He said, tell your client to answer Joe's questions, or if he doesn't want to answer the questions, then either take the fifth or whatever, whatever you want to put on the record. But he said he's going to answer the question because it was really important. So we're talking with Charles Dunn of Boyd, Furnabuke, and Dunn. He is the #1 male divorce lawyer here in Birmingham. We're so privileged to have him on a Friday afternoon. I can tell he's tired, just like me.
You keep saying that, Joe. I'm going to have a hard time getting my head out of this door if you keep on saying that I'm the #1.
You are.
I appreciate that.
You are. So Charles, let me ask you, we do all the discovery and then we get the deposition notice. And I'll get those notices where they'll ask me to bring everything that I've already provided in the course of discovery already. And they'll start going down the list. Did you bring this? Did you bring that? Did you bring this? That whole, you know what I'm talking about. And I just tell my client to say, if we've already provided it, we've already given it to you.
Right.
How do you feel about that? That sometimes that gets on my nerves just a little bit because it's kind of overkill. I mean, we're being redundant. Right. Talk about that a minute.
Yeah. So attached to a deposition notice will be oftentimes a request for production, where your client is asked to bring, or the other side's asked to bring to their deposition records. And like you say, Joe, a lot of times these records have already been asked for, already been produced, that kind of thing. So in that kind of case, if I get a deposition notice and they've asked for the same things that we've already provided, my instruction to my client is provide only what supplemental documents you have. Anything that you've accumulated since the last date of production, you bring that. All right. Any statements from that date forward. If there's new information, new documents, whatever, let's do that if they've asked for it, that kind of thing. But and then if there's an issue by the other attorney in the deposition, why didn't you bring 5 years worth of bank statements?
Yeah.
I'll respond on the record. Well, it's because my client's already provided them.
Yeah.
What you have before you today is the three months worth of statements that he's gotten since that time.
Yeah.
Typically that's not an issue. And I always tell my clients that, look, when you sit for a deposition, I want you going in. I don't want your phone out. I don't want you to have any piece of paper, anything. I'm going to have everything. Anything you need, I'm going to have. If the other side refers to something, a particular bank statement, a credit card statement that we've already provided, I'll slide it over to you if they don't have a copy and they want to ask you questions about it. Your answers to interrogatories, I'll have those, and I'll slide those over to you, that kind of thing. So, I'm not just sitting there taking a nap while my client's being deposed. I typically am, being mentally focused and trying to keep up with what's being asked and providing documents to my client as they're being asked, or asking the other side that, hey, if you want to question my client about something, why don't you give them a copy of this, or let's take a break and make a copy of it, and this isn't a memory sort of test.
Yeah. Charles, I got about 4 minutes left with you. So for our viewers out there that don't really know you, what do you like to do for fun to get away from this? Because divorce work is really, really stressful. It's real intense. It deals with people's lives, their assets, their children. How do you handle it day in and day out? What do you do to manage it?
So I'm soon to be 56 years old. Been doing this, like I say, for 29 years or so almost. And it does take a special weird type of person to do this day in, day out. I am one of those weird type of persons where I have that weird ability that when I turn off the lights and go home, I leave it at the desk. I don't typically think about clients' cases. I don't have problems going to sleep, that kind of thing. But it can be very stressful, this type of work. Not only the content, but some of the lawyers you have to deal with can be a pleasure, and I say that sarcastically. But so on my off time, I like working in the yard. It takes great satisfaction sweating, working in the yard, getting to see the results, immediate results of what you've done and working in the yard. As a 56-year-old, I've been married once before. I have 2 children by that marriage that are older. And I've now married and have 2 young children. I have an 8 and 7-year-old.
Wow.
So whenever I say that and people know I'm 56 years old, they sort of raise their eyebrows. And I'm like, well, parenting, having done it once before, parenting's like riding a bike. It comes back to you. But unfortunately, this time, at being 56, the bike's always uphill, So the 7 and 8-year-old boys, they keep me busy, doing a lot of sports and that kind of thing, running them to and from events. So on weekends, that's pretty much what I'm doing. I'm out in the yard with them, either working the yard or throwing the ball.
Wow. Let me ask you, how many hours a week are you working right now? What are you typically?
I am sometimes in the office as early as 4:30 in the morning. Typically, because we do have 2 young children, I've promised my wife that I will try to leave at 5.
Yeah.
And try to stick to that as close as I can.
Yeah.
So that's typically 5 days a week. As circumstances dictate, if I have to come in for on the weekend or typically take stuff home on the weekend, I'll do that and maybe spend a couple hours on a Saturday or a Sunday getting ready for the week. But it's usually, I would say, probably 60 hours or so. Plus.
Easy. Yeah. I'm working 80 to 100.
Yeah. Wow.
So, I have no life. But anyway. Okay. So, Charles, real fast, because I got about a minute.
Yeah.
Are you a big fan of mediation or not? I'm not a big fan of mediation.
Only in certain circumstances. I think all too often mediation is just sort of something people do because it's the next thing they think that needs to be done. And obviously it can be very expensive. So if I believe that the case has a chance to settle, and I believe the other side is going to appear in good faith and actually try to earnestly settle the case, then yeah, I think mediation can be very good. But certainly it's not something that is a common tool right now.
Some of the judges, folks in some of our counties are pushing mediation as part of their scheduling orders. And mediation is only a tool, Charles, if you know that the parties are willing to show up in good faith and try to make a move towards the middle. And if they're not, you're just wasting your time.
That's right.
All right, we had Charles Dunn. Charles, thank you, sir.
Well, thank you.
Have a good weekend.
You too.
Folks, we'll be back after news and weather. We'll be back top of the hour. Bye.
You're listening to The Legal Lowdown with your lawyer, Joe Ingram. If you need confidential legal help off air, reach out to Joe at joeingramlaw.com. Stay tuned for more. Joe will be right back after this break for news and weather. He's a tough street-fighting lawyer with the highest ratings for honesty and integrity. He's here to answer your legal questions and get you the help you need. You're listening to The Legal Lowdown with your lawyer, Joe Ingram of Joe Ingram Law. Joe Ingram has more than 20 years' experience fighting for his clients here in the state of Alabama. Joe's focus is criminal defense and family law. You don't have to face your legal issue alone. You've got Joe Ingram on your side. In case of sensitive legal matters, you can always reach out directly to Joe at joeingramlaw.com and arrange for a private consultation. And now, Alabama's defender of the defenseless, protector of the people, and all-around good guy, Joe Ingram.
All right, we're back for the second hour of the Legal Lowdown. Joe Ingram, your Alabama lawyer on WERC 105.5 in Birmingham, WBHP up in Huntsville, and WRTR Tuscaloosa. If you missed the first hour, please go back and listen to my podcast. You just missed a wonderful interview with Charles Dunn. He is a colleague of mine. He is a great divorce lawyer here in Birmingham. And if you ever need a divorce lawyer, Charles is one of the ones to call. He'll take good care of it. As always, we are proud to tell you about our sponsors, Shelby Fence Company. Shelby Fence Company of Birmingham. They handle both residential and commercial. They take quality in their work. If you need them, you can call them 205-664-1551, 205-664-1551, or you can look them up at shelbyfencecompany.com. As always, if you need my office, you can call us at 205-825-5297, or you can look us up, joeingramlaw.com. Joeingramlaw.com is all you need to know for legal representation in the state of Alabama. And as always, please go check us out on Apple, Spotify, or even my YouTube channel for our video show now. Okay, so last week I was off. Apologize for that in the interview that we were supposed to have. Next week we have Ashley Dunham that's going to be here. She's running for the Alabama Supreme Court. You will want to listen to that interview. Okay, so today on the national legal front, we got to start where we left off. Communism. Communism is running over the Democratic Party. There is no more traditional Democratic Party. And those that are traditional Democrats, by and large, mostly are staying silent. The ones that are coming out are talking about how we have a big tent party. All they want are the power and the votes. And as we've talked about, they want to get rid of the presidency. They want to get rid of the Senate. They want to do away with police. They want to do away with prisons. They want to make everybody here legal, give them amnesty in the United States. And the The person that won the race up in Wisconsin for the governor primary the other day, Wisconsin Hong Huang, she's come out and said that she was in a restaurant and she hated being around so many white people. It gave her anxiety, by the way. And yes, she wants to do away with Thanksgiving. She said it's a colonial holiday. So if you like Thanksgiving, you like Christmas, you like going out to restaurants, I don't know if she's your candidate in Wisconsin, but you let me know, by the way. So anyway, that's what's going on with the communists in the government. Somebody from the Biden world era came out this week, and they said that Al Saeed up in Michigan, he was going to cross party lines. He was former Jill Biden's press secretary. Michael LaRosa said he would not support the Michigan Democrat Senate candidate, Abdul al-Saeed. He cited the candidate's refusal to distance himself from far-left streamer Hassan Piker over his past remarks about 9/11. If you remember, Piker has come out and said that we deserved 9/11. That means all those people, 2,997 American people, and yes, there were foreign citizens too, that died on 9/11/2001. They deserve to die. They deserve to jump out of the Twin Towers or burn to death. That's what he just said. Anyway, I digress for just a second. So some of the traditional Democrats are bailing on the party. They're distancing themselves from this bunch of nutcases. In the case of LaRosa, he drew widespread condemnation after his 2019 live stream where he said America deserved 9/11, by the way. Quote, I will not defend or support anyone who is too cowardly to stand up to extremists who think the mother of my best friend who jumped from 95 stories because the alternative was worse deserved what happened to her, end of quote, LaRosa. Yes, that's what we're talking about. Someone telling us that our own citizens deserve to die on 9/11. That's coming up here shortly, our anniversary. Oh, my goodness. And these people are here to destroy our way of life. They're here to destroy what we have built as a country. The American left just got a taste of its own political correct cancellation medicine, or controversial, because Hassan Piker was not invited to speak at a university this week. They said he was too controversial. Believe that. The left finally canceled one of their own for a change and said that they just weren't going to let him on the university to speak. That happens more often than not to conservatives. Now they're doing it to their own left. Imagine that. So as we get close to Labor Day and we talk about the fall, two big things here for the Republicans that matter that we have to get in order still to have a chance to maybe keep the Senate if we're lucky. We probably may lose the House. The biggest decision is with the Iranian war. Either we have to bomb them into submission, and I'm talking about all infrastructure. I'm talking about all power grids. I'm talking about their water grids. Bomb them back to the Stone Ages into submission. Their inflation in Iran is over 70% right now. People are rioting in the street for food and water. Or we've got to get gas back to $3 a gallon. We're at a sticker shock right now. I think I paid $3.49 this week for gas somewhere, and I'm going to the beach in a couple weeks. So at the coast, it's going to be closer to $4 a gallon. So we've got to do something about that. We did have a positive vote last week. Todd Blanche got elected to be the Attorney General. It's a party line vote, 50-49, by the way. Oh, and the senator from Alaska, Lisa Murkowski, who is not really a Republican, voted against our own Republican Attorney General, Todd Blanche. Go figure. Murkowski's got to go. I don't know why she's still there. I'm surprised she won the last election. There are not that many people in Alaska. I may move to Alaska and run for the United States Senate. I think I can beat Lisa Murkowski. I really do. There's not that many people in Alaska. They don't really care. All they want to do is hunt deer, go fishing, or hunt bear. And so if that's your mentality, then I might move to Alaska and become a United States Senator. Just saying. Something to think about. Okay. We talked about the communist up in Wisconsin, Hong. She won her race. She's against prisons. She's against police. She's against Thanksgiving. If you like freedom, if you like safety, if you don't want a civil war in the streets, maybe she's not for you. The only thing that she has ever run is a restaurant, and she ran it into the ground. And she gave a statement the other day. Get this, folks. She said that tipping was racist. No, sweetie, tipping is not racist. Tipping was created for people that work in the food industry. She is going to run for an office that has a budget of $3 billion for the state of Wisconsin. She has no business experience. She has no management experience. And she's going to run a statewide race. And oh, by the way, if she wants to get rid of the police, do you think she gives up her police detail if she wins? And oh, by the way, if she wins, can we kick her out of the Wisconsin governor's mansion and sell it and say, you don't need the house? It's too big a house for you? Do we look at her salary and say, you know what? That's too much money. You don't need to make that much money because y'all are so obsessed with how much money everybody makes in America? These are questions that we need to ask them on shows. They're so caught up with who has the money and who doesn't. So we ask them, if you become the governor, will you give up your police detail? Will you sell off the governor's mansion? Look at their face. They're going to say, no, we can't do that. And they're going to give you some stupid, obscure answer like, well, we don't have the authority to sell the governor's mansion. We just live there, and we have to have police detail to protect us. You want police, but you want the citizens in the street not to have police. And again this week, the communist co-chair, she is becoming public enemy number one. Her name is Megan Romer. She has red glasses, and she's an idiot, and she was on a podcast this week. And the guy pushed back a little bit. He said, what do you want to do about taxing the rich? And she said, we're going to tax the hell out of them. And he said, what does that mean? And she just said, we're going to tax them to death. And he kept asking, what does that mean to you? And she said, we're going to tax the millionaires and the billionaires. And he kept pushing back. What is the number? What is the percentage? She can't give you a number. Do you ever notice every time these people that get asked how much is enough, they never know? And you know why? It's real simple. They've never really read a tax return. They've never really filed taxes. Go Google the IRS. It is a spreadsheet. It tells you what your tax rate is based on what you make, whether you fall into 10%, 12% bracket, 20%, 22, 24, 32, 37. If you're in the 37% bracket like me, I am tired of somebody telling me I'm not paying enough. That means 37 cents out of every dollar I make is going to somebody else that refuses to work for themselves. That's all they can say. It's not enough. Well, how much is enough for you? I don't know, but we want more. So Megan Romer, I wish she would come on my podcast. I would crucify her for an hour, and I'd give her 90 minutes if she wants it. But if people are listening out there, and I hope people start listening closer to election season, maybe they're going to start listening to this. And they're going to say, you know what? I might fall into some of these buckets where they're trying to do something to me. Maybe I like having police protection. Maybe I want people to be in prisons. I don't know. It's just a thought. I may be wrong. We will find out come election in November. Okay. That's enough of Romer. I could go on for her for days. Oh, and by the way, she talked about people that become billionaires. And they allude that the only way you get $1 billion is that you either steal it or it's like ill-gotten gains. No, ma'am, it's not. See, let me go back and give you history on what we call American exceptionalism and capitalism. This is the greatest country that's ever been built. I think of John D. Rockefeller, Shell Oil Company, Henry Ford, Model T car. I can go on and on and on and on and on. Every industry in the world. Apple, Microsoft, Tesla. Goodness. I mean, there are so many industries. People that go out and build a company and they put it on the stock exchange. They get sweat equity stock at a reduced rate. And then everybody gets an opportunity to invest in the company, hopingly to make money. And then they get exceptionally rich because they built it. And oh, by the way, billionaires, guess what they do? They pay their fair share in taxes. Most billionaires are not W-2 employees. Mark Zuckerberg pays himself $1 a year. He is not a salary wage slave. Okay? Billionaires don't pay themselves salaries. Their money comes through investments and other ways of getting money funneled through businesses. I'll tell you what billionaires do offer. They provide jobs to the American people. Imagine that. They provide jobs, and they provide really good jobs. Look at the people at Apple. Look at the people at Microsoft. Look at all the people at Tesla and SpaceX that work there. That Elon Musk just made millionaires overnight when the stock went public a couple weeks ago. There is nothing wrong with somebody being a billionaire. They make it out like you have stolen the money. You haven't. You created something. There is nothing wrong with that. So quit making billionaires defensive. And by the way, I looked it up today. I wanted to be correct. Do you know that there are 26 million millionaires in the United States? Having $1 million today is not that big a deal anymore. Now, don't get me wrong. If you don't have $1 million, then you're sad. But I'm just saying, if you've worked hard, you've played by the rules, you've put money in the stock market, you've bought a house, you've paid off your cars, you live the American dream, there's nothing wrong with having $1 million and saying, I'm a millionaire. You shouldn't be ashamed of that, or saying I'm debt-free. That's what you're supposed to do. So there's nothing wrong with being a millionaire. We have 26 million millionaires in the United States, by the way. And the alternative to capitalism is Mao, China, Castro, Cuba, Venezuela. Those are your alternatives. That's what they're trying to do in America. I didn't really want to go this far, but I might as well. I'm on my soapbox. Do you know up in Michigan, in Dearborn, Michigan today, do you know you can go to a Home Depot? All the little signs in the store that tell you aisle 17 paint, aisle 16 is screws. Do you know they're all written in Arabic? I had to go watch the video for myself. I could not believe it. We are in the United States, in an American city, in a major store. All the signs are written in Arabic. There are over 40,000 Muslims in Dearborn, Michigan. And here's why this is important. This is not about religion. This is about people not assimilating. You can go down the neighborhoods in Dearborn, Michigan. Guess what? There's not an American flag flying on any house. Guess what flag they're flying? A flag of a foreign Middle Eastern Muslim country. What does that tell you? They're not assimilating. And by the way, there was an American about 2 weeks ago that had a sign up that said, Jesus is the only way. Guess what happened to that man? The Muslims ran up to him and almost stoned him and tried to beat him to death in the street. 2 police cars had to show up, put him in a police car so they wouldn't kill him in the street in Michigan. That is what I'm talking about that's coming to America. That is what we are facing. We've done it to ourselves, and we're going to let us die from within if we do not take control and get back to people that want to come to America assimilating. I'm just saying. That's happening up in Michigan. All right. That covers that. This week, if you noticed, Justice Alito put out a memo from the Supreme Court. No, he's not retiring. Judge Sam Alito is staying, my buddy. He's 76. I imagine in the next year that either he or Clarence Thomas are going to draw straws, and one of them are going to have to retire. And imagine that. President Donald J. Trump, he will have the opportunity to have put in, 4 justices on the Supreme Court by then? That is incredible. That is an unbelievable number, by the way. I'm just saying. Anyway, so Alito is staying. Also in the news this week nationally, we talked about Al Said. We talked about Wisconsin. These races are unbelievable. Locally in the state races for the new congressional districts, this is a really sad number. I think the turnout was less than, was it 12% statewide? 10%? John's kind of shaking. Was it lower than 10? That's pretty low. That's like friends and family votes. That's a really sad number. But in defense of everybody, that election wasn't even set up until the summer by Kay Ivey. I mean, that was a special one-off election. So school started back this week for most folks. It doesn't affect everybody in the state. It was only just a couple of districts. So there's some trade-off there. I don't think there were even a lot of commercials I saw on the news. I didn't see a lot of commercials for those races. I may be wrong. But the turnout was really low. But we're going to have some new candidates for some of these districts, and we're going to have them on in the fall. I have to throw this out. Okay. From the Syrian war, my buddy, Bashir Assad, that killed 500,000 of his own fellow citizens over a 12-year period. Guess what? They just announced the death penalty in absentia, meaning whenever he leaves Russia, they're going to hang him and cut his head off. And they should. I got news for you, folks. Putin over in Russia has a couple of these little chess pieces. He has Snowden. He has Bashir Assad. He has Steven Seagal. Why Steven Seagal's in Russia, I don't know. But Putin has all these little pieces, and someday he's going to trade them away right before he dies for whatever he needs. So Bashir Assad, you hang out in Moscow for a while, but someday you're going to meet your fate in the desert. And that brings us back to Barack Obama, who in 2012 or 13 said he had a red line in the sand and he didn't do anything, and that's how we got ISIS. And that's why in 2016, why President Donald J. Trump came to town and we got rid of ISIS in about a year. Just want to bring you up to speed on Assad. He is going to be gone soon, and soon is not fast enough for me. Okay, that segment went by pretty fast. We're going to go to break here in about a minute or a minute and a half. I'm always off. If you missed the first hour, go back and listen to Charles Dunn. Next week, we have Ashley Durham, who is going to be on. She's running for the Alabama Supreme Court. We'll be back after news and weather. We'll see you in just a minute for the final segment. Gone fast.
You're listening to The Legal Lowdown with your lawyer, Joe Ingram. If you need confidential legal help off air, reach out to Joe at joeingramlaw.com. Stay tuned for more. Joe will be right back after this break for news and weather. You're listening to The Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram. Joe is a 20-year veteran of the Alabama courts specializing in criminal defense and family law. If you need a private legal consultation, email Joe at joeingramlaw.com. And now, welcome back to The Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram.
All right. You're listening to Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram, your Alabama lawyer on WERC 105.5 in Birmingham, WBHP up in Huntsville, and WRTR Tuscaloosa. We're back for the final segment. It's been a fast show. It goes by faster than you realize. Next week, Ashley Dunham will be in the studio. She is running for the Alabama Supreme Court. She's running for a seat. She's running as a Democrat. You will want to listen to that interview. If you listen to our podcast, go back and listen to the first hour. Charles Dunn was on the show today of Boyd, Furnabuke, and Dunn. Charles Dunn is a fabulous divorce lawyer, and we had a great discussion talking about depositions in a divorce case. I strongly encourage you to go back and listen to that interview. As always, we want to give courtesy to our sponsor, Shelby Fence Company. Shelby Fence Company. They have been in the greater Birmingham area for a very long time. They are the best at what they do, both residential and commercial. Whether you need wood, fence, iron, whatever it is, whether it's a repair, whether it's an installation, Shelby Fence Company is the name to know for a fence. And if you call, you'll probably talk to the owner, Tim. Tell him Joe sent you. You can look them up on the web, ShelbyFenceCompany.com, or you can call them 205-664-1551, 205-664-1551. As always, if you need representation, you can call my office, 205-825-5297, 205-825-5297, or look us up on the web, joeingramlaw.com. Or, as always, just say, better call Joe. If you have a case, better call Joe. We practice from Birmingham, Huntsville, Tuscaloosa, Mobile, and even down in the Dothan area. If you have serious money, we'll go to Dothan. It's a little joke from a long time ago. Okay. So we were talking about some national news. You're going to love this next story, folks. For all you that just put the little kiddies back in school and in college this week, there was a story in the news. You're going to love this. The University of Michigan. Are you ready for this? Now, I want to back up just a minute. In 2016, when President Trump won the election, do you remember what happened at the University of Michigan Law School? Do you remember that they had a crayon day for law students? I'm not making this up. They had a crayon day for law students. They had law students crying because President Trump won the election. They had the snowflakes had a meltdown at a law school, so they had a crayon day. I would love to see a lawyer in the courtroom from Michigan that had a crayon day. I mean, I would crucify them. It would be so much fun. Okay. So up at the University of Michigan, for all the little snowflakes, because they can't have a mental breakdown and they have anxiety, it has been announced that for the first year, they're not going to give grades. You're not going to get an A. You're not going to get a B. You're not going to get a C. You're not going to get a D. You're going to get a pass or a fail. That's right. And guess what? All you have to do is show up to pass. Just show up in the room. The guy that gave the interview said, if you don't show up, you fail. Are you kidding me? That's where we are in America in college. Just show up, you pass. When you get a job, you can't just show up, because if you showed up at my office that way, you'd be fired really fast. We actually have standards at my office. And most businesses that are successful have standards, by the way. It's not just showing up, okay? I love that. And this professor tried to justify the means of why that they were doing this. This is at a big university, University of Michigan. This has been done at some Ivy League schools as well. And if I had the money to send my kid to Harvard or Yale or Stanford or MIT, and I said, my kid just passes or fails, no, I would want to know what my kid really was able to accomplish for that kind of money. It's called return on investment, by the way. And let me make this really clear. I'm not all about grades. You show me a candidate that has all A's, I'm not that big on them, because that means they have no social skills, okay? That means they can't relate to people. You don't have to have a 4.0 GPA for me. But when you get into your core subjects, whatever your major is, if you're making D's and you're going to be a lawyer, maybe you don't need to be a practicing lawyer. If you're in medical school and you're making C's and you're going to be a orthopedic surgeon, I don't know that I want you doing my surgery on my knee. Professional degrees, you need to have a higher level of expectation of yourself to be a professional. But I'm not all about the grades. I just found that story kind of sad in a way, that at a university of higher learning, that we're going to give pass-fail. And I bring this up to say that we are planning on having a president of a university on our show here in a couple of weeks. I can't wait to ask him that question. Are you giving pass-fail now? I know he's not. But I want to see the look on his face when I ask him that question. That's where we are in America. Okay. As I've always said, the strong will prevail. The strong will get ahead. The weak will fall behind. The weak are merciless. The weak are the ones that get fired. It happens every day in America. So those that want to succeed will succeed, and those that want to fail will just get a passing grade. And those are the ones that will be wage slaves the rest of their lives, because they don't have any ambition to go out and create anything on their own. Okay. So this brings me to a little passage of a book that I think is really important. The book is called The Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel. Let me read this to you for a second and let this sink in for all of you out there who are communists or thinking about communism right now. The highest form of wealth is the ability to wake up every morning and say, quote, I can do whatever I want to do, end of quote. People want to become wealthier to make them happier. Happiness is a complicated subject because everyone's different. But if there's a common denominator in happiness, a universal fuel of joy, it's that people who control their own lives, the ability to do what they want to do when they want to do it and who they want to do it with for as long as they want to do it, is priceless. There you go. I want democracy. I want capitalism. I want to get as rich as I can, and I don't want to give it to you because you refuse to work, and I pay the highest tax rate at 37% on the dollar. Okay, some state legal news this week. We talked about the elections. I believe the rate of people voting was less than 10%. The elections weren't announced until the summer. I read an article this week. We've talked a lot about data centers this summer. This is an issue we're going to be debating for the next 10 years. And the article was styled, "Should we place a moratorium as a state on data centers?" And they took a poll, and the poll is only as good as the questions you ask and the people that you ask. And it turned out that people are really listening to this issue of data centers. I'm not just talking in the wind. People really care about this issue. Data centers take up huge amounts of land. They take unbelievable amounts of power. It takes an unbelievable amount of water to cool it. And just for the record, yes, you do get some money to build it. Yes, you do provide some jobs to build this. But once you've put the infrastructure in place, you only have to have maybe 30 employees to run this 79 acre of land called a data center. Okay? So, in this poll and in this data, I thought these were really cool numbers. 74% said, yes, we need to hit the brakes at all costs and put some heavy guardrails on. People are listening to me out there. Imagine that. 10% said, I think there should be some local rules and regulations are necessary. Okay. 9% said no data centers. 9% said data centers mean jobs and growth for Alabama. Those 9% are idiots that do not follow the news and don't listen to anything. They provide jobs to build it for a construction company. Harvard, Brasfield Gorey are going to build this data center. Once it's built, once you've plowed 79 acres of ground and you've put up this huge concrete mausoleum that's got enough power to generate the moon and enough water to take up the Gulf of Mexico, you get 24 employees. That's it. You get some tax revenues. You get that, but that's all you get. And then 6%, these are what I call the Medicare people that are just sitting home collecting their Medicare check, living on welfare, said that they weren't really sure. They didn't have a say. They didn't know anything. Okay. That's the data center issue. As I told you earlier, we're getting close to the fall. We're getting close to the elections after Labor Day. People start paying attention again to the issues. Data centers are going to be a big issue in the fall. It's probably going to be the number third issue if I had to guess. First issue is your pocketbook. You vote with your pocketbook. It's the Iranian war stupid. It's how much is a gallon of gas, and are we getting any better off? But the third issue is probably going to be data centers. And education. Education is always important. There is a criminal trial. I want to back up just a minute. There is a criminal trial going on up in Massachusetts right now. I'm not sure if you've been following this case. I follow it just a little bit enough to read the headlines every week. There's a mother named Lindsay Clancy. Lindsay Clancy. Have you heard about this case? She allegedly murdered her own children. and they were really young, and it was really sad. And the issue is whether or not she had postpartum depression and whether she could criminally be responsible for knowing what she did, or is she mentally insane? Now, if you've been watching this trial and you have appreciation for it, the issue is whether she's criminally responsible for her own actions of the deaths of her children, or whether she should spend most of her adult life in a mental hospital, if you will, that she doesn't have the mental capacity to acknowledge what she did between right and wrong. Now, her lawyer made a brilliant decision about 2 weeks ago when I was off. And here's why. They stipulated to a lot of the evidence that would have come in at trial. Chain of custody, DNA, meaning they eliminated about 6 to 10 witnesses that would have all testified to the same factual basis of the crime. So the jury doesn't hear 6 to 10 times. The mother did this, the mother did that, the mother did this to the children, the mother did that to kill the children. You've wiped all that redundant testimony, if you will, from the minds of the jury. Now, if you're really smart and you sit back and you listen to this, here's why. The jurors have only heard it one time from the investigator. They're not going to hear the same story repetitively 10 times from 10 different people in a different way. This is a really good criminal defense lawyer. But by the way, if you've watched him during this trial, it's taken about 10 years off his life. It has really aged him. And I imagine the pictures are really gruesome of the crime scene, okay? But he is doing a fabulous job as a defense lawyer. He really is. I am highly impressed with him. I don't know if he's court appointed. I don't know if he's retained. His name is Kevin Reddington. Go look up this case. This is textbook criminal law 101 on how you try a case and how you eliminate letting people get up there and crucify your client. I have said this before. Do you know what the difference is between murder and attempted murder? Do you know? It's kind of a joke. Don't get upset if it offends you. If it's attempted murder, there's just one more witness against your client in the courtroom. Yeah, Joe tried to kill me. He pointed a gun at me. If it's murder, well, the victim can't testify because he's dead. So what this lawyer has done has taken 10 people off the stand to keep just crucifying his client, if you will. What he is doing is setting this up for a battle of the experts, meaning the state is going to have a psychiatrist testify, and then the defense is going to have a psychiatrist testify, and it's going to come down to who you really believe. Is she a mass murderer of her children, or is she mentally incompetent to really appreciate what she did to her own children when she killed them? It's a technical issue. I know I'll get crucified. I know you're going to call me. I know you're going to Facebook me. You're going to say, Joe, you're just a criminal lawyer. You have no conscience. No, I'm telling you, this is how you practice criminal law. He's doing a really good job. I am really, really impressed with watching him try this case. So that is a good case to go follow. It would be unusual for me not to mention a top 10 list, and I'm only going to get this in because we're running short on time. We're going to call this my top 10 list of the week, okay? And number 10 should be number 1, but for whatever reason on this list, number 10 is number 10. So don't call me all the religious people. We're going to call this our top 10 list of the week. Lessons from the most powerful men who have ever lived on this earth. The top 10 lessons from the most powerful men who have ever lived on this earth. Are you ready? Number 1, There is nothing impossible for him who tries. Alexander the Great. Number 2, if you're afraid, don't do it. And if you do it, don't be afraid. Genghis Khan. He's a little old. Number 3, the secret of getting ahead is getting started. John D. Rockefeller. How many times have I said, it's okay to fail, it's not okay to try. If you don't try, you can't fail. But if you fail, you can get up and try again. Number 4. If I can get there. You're never going to get a hit if you don't get to the bat. You're never going to get hit if you don't get to the bat. He who conquers himself is the mightiest warrior. Confucius, little old guy. Number 5, appear weak when you're strong, and when you're strong, you need to appear weak. Sun Tzu is from a book called The Art of War. It's about Chinese. It's about war. It's a good book to read. It's a small book to read, but it's a really good book to read. Go read The Art of War. Number 6, waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Just be one. Number 7, the harder the conflict, the greater the triumph. That was said by George Washington, the father of our country. I'm going to read that one again. The harder the conflict, the greater the triumph. George Washington. That's number 7. Number 8, success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue. That counts. See what I just said again? It's okay to fail, but you got to get up and try again. I'm going to read that one again because I love it. Success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. Guess who said that? Winston Churchill. Love Churchill. Number 9, your time is limited. Don't waste it living someone else's life. Go live yours. Steve Jobs. Imagine that. If you don't like your job, I've said this a million times. If you hate getting up going to work on Monday morning, quit your job and go find something else or start your own job. If you hate going to work, that is the worst feeling on this planet. I love getting up doing what I do every day. And number 10, and it really should be number 1, for the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve Jesus Christ. Yes, 10 should be 1 and 1 should be 10. I didn't put them in the order. I just read you the list that came into my inbox this week. Okay, so we've covered a lot today. I want to talk about some good things that's happened this week at my office. I had a client that had both a PFA, a protection from abuse order, and a criminal charge related to that. Allegedly, they said he had threatened to shoot his own cat. I got the PFA dismissed, and I got the criminal charge dismissed of what happened in his front yard. Very happy about that. We settled a divorce case. We had a trial. We got a defense verdict, meaning that the plaintiff didn't prove anything. The judge awarded me all my attorney fees in the case. That means it was a knockdown. That means we won. My client called me. They said, "What does this mean, Joe?" I said, "That means that if we ever get the money, that the money you paid me will go back to you. It didn't cost you a dime for me to try the case." I've talked about this a lot. I want to get this in really fast. Interesting, I talk about this all the time. Post-nups and pre-nups are becoming the way to go. I did another post-nup this week for a client. I have said it before, a prenup or a post-nup is an insurance policy. That's all it is. It's a contract. It's an insurance policy. You've already determined how the marriage is going to end if it goes bad. There is nothing wrong with having a prenup or a postnup. It is the best thing to do because you have determined how the marriage is going to end if it goes bad. I had a client in my office this week. He met a friend from high school on Facebook. He came home. He dated this person 6 weeks. He got married. He came in my office. He said, Joe, I made a bad decision. I already see the signs. I said, that's okay. We're going to file a post-up. It's good. He had really good assets. I said, if she doesn't sign the post-up, we just go to a divorce. You've only been married a very short time. So I tell you, it is not a bad idea to get a prenup or a post-up today. You have made an insurance policy of how this is going to end if the marriage does not end successfully. And do not tell me out there, well, if you marry for love, you don't need a prenup or a postnup. No, ma'am, you really do. People come into marriage with real assets now, and you do not want to have to pay me in the end to litigate a divorce case or Charles Dunn. If the two of us had a case, it'd be really expensive. That's a joke, Charles. Don't get mad. Okay, before I get out of here, I want to give you my parting thought because I've been away for 2 weeks. And this is for my runners. Discipline is boring. Hard work is boring. Studying is boring. Do the same thing every day is boring. The boredom is the birthplace of success. So right now, be the boring one. Go do the hard work every week. That gets us to the end. Next week, we have a great guest. We've got great guests coming every week. We enjoy the show. And we thank you for all the people that have downloaded the podcast the last few weeks. We got the traffic for the month of July. It was off the charts. It was Atlanta numbers, one person told me. I was kind of shocked. And people are actually watching the shorts and the YouTube channel. So thank you. I appreciate that, by the way. So it's been a great week, and I'll talk to you next week. Got to go. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to the Legal Lowdown with your lawyer, Joe Ingram of Joe Ingram Law. Don't forget to follow Joe's Legal Lowdown podcast on iHeart. If you need a private legal consultation, reach out to Joe on his website, joeingramlaw.com. Tune in again next Saturday for the Legal Lowdown with Joe Ingram. No representation is made that the quality of legal services to be performed is greater than the quality of legal services performed by any other lawyer.